Ladies and gentlemen, hold onto your seats and imagine this electrifying scene. A cocky young entrepreneur from the outer boroughs of New York, armed with his father's loan and an unquenchable thirst for the spotlight, dives headlong into the shark-infested waters of Manhattan real estate. He erects towering monuments to his own name, only to see them teeter on the brink of collapse under mountains of debt and flashy casino bets gone wrong. But wait, that's just Act 1. He reinvents himself as the king of reality TV, barking you're fired to millions, turning his personal brand into a cultural phenomenon. Then, in a plot twist no one saw coming, he storms the political arena, toppling established giants, weathering storms of scandals, impeachments, and legal barrages that would bury lesser mortals, and seizes the presidency not once, but twice, surviving assassination attempts along the way, his fist raised defiantly against the odds. This, my friends, is the pulse-pounding biography of Donald John Trump, a larger-than-life figure whose existence feels ripped from the pages of a high-octane thriller novel. His path is a maze of sky-high victories that touch the stars and gut-wrenching plunges into controversy and defeat, only to rise again like a phoenix from the ashes. It's a narrative that has splintered opinions across the globe, ignited fiery debates in living rooms and on social media, and held the world captive through every twist and turn. If you're here for a story brimming with raw, unbridled ambition, juicy scandals that dominate headlines, and comebacks so audacious they redefine resilience, then buckle up. We're about to embark on an immersive exploration of the man who birthed the MAGA era, built empires of gold and glass, and unleashed a torrent of tweets that reshaped the political landscape. We'll dissect the pivotal moments, the hidden anecdotes, and the human elements that make this tale unforgettable. Let's travel back to the origins, to the very cradle where this epic began, and trace the threads that wove this extraordinary tapestry. Our story kicks off on a balmy June day in 1946, June 14. To be precise, in the vibrant, working-class heartbeat of Queens, New York City, Donald John Trump makes his grand entrance at Jamaica Hospital, crying out into a post-World War Roman II America, buzzing with optimism and reconstruction. As the fourth child in a brood of 5, he's born into the Trump family, a clan whose roots are steeped in tales of immigrant tenacity and bootstrapped success that could themselves inspire a saga of determination. His father, Frederick Christ Trump, known simply as Fred, was a second-generation German-American whose own father, Friedrich Trump, had dodged conscription in Bavaria and ventured to America in 1885, chasing fortune in the rough-and-tumble Klondike gold rush. Friedrich hustled in the frozen Yukon, operating saloons, restaurants, and boarding houses amid the gold fever rumors swirled of more illicit enterprises like brothels, adding a layer of intrigue and shadow to the family legend, before heading back east to New York, where he invested in real estate. Friedrich's untimely death from the 1918 flu pandemic left Fred, at just 12 years old, to step up and support his mother, Elizabeth, by taking odd jobs and eventually partnering with her in building modest homes. Fred, born in 1905 in the Bronx, inherited that entrepreneurial fire, but tempered it with Depression-era grit. As a teenager, he worked as a carpenter's assistant, hammering nails and learning the trade from the ground up, often rising before dawn to attend high school while juggling construction gigs. By age 19, he'd built and sold his first house to fund his mother's home, a move that showcased his precocious business acumen. The 1930 saw him pivot to mass housing, riding the wave of New Deal programs like the Federal Housing Administration to erect affordable apartments in Brooklyn and Queens. Projects like the massive Trump Village in Kenai Island, a complex of 7 high-rises completed in the 1960s, provided homes for thousands of families, catering to the post-war baby boom and the influx of returning veterans seeking stability. Fred's penny-pinching style, squeezing every dime from suppliers, enforcing strict loyalty from his crews through a mix of incentives and intimidation, and navigating the bureaucratic maze of government subsidies, amassed a wealth that ballooned into the hundreds of millions in modern terms. He was a formidable figure, a strict disciplinarian, a lifelong teetotaler who abhorred smoking and drinking after witnessing his brother Fred Jr. struggles, and a mentor who hammered home lessons like never give up and be a killer in business. Be a king in life, Fred's hands-on approach meant he personally inspected sites, often in a chauffeured Cadillac, barking orders and ensuring no detail escaped his scrutiny. Yet, his legacy carried complexities: a 1927 arrest at a Ku Klux Klan rally in Queens, where he was charged with refusing to disperse amid a clash between Klan members and police, though charges were dropped, and he denied any affiliation, painted a picture of the racial and social undercurrents of the time, a footnote that would later echo in discussions about the family's business practices and allegations of discriminatory renting policies. Balancing Fred's stern, no-nonsense demeanor was Donald's mother, Mary Ann MacLeod Trump, whose odyssey from the remote Scottish Hebrides infused the household with warmth, resilience, and a touch of dramatic flair. Born in 1912, in the tiny village of Tong on the Isle of Lewis, Mary grew up in a humble crofter's cottage, surrounded by the rugged Atlantic winds, speaking Gaelic as her first language, and tending to sheep and peat bogs in a life of stark simplicity and hardship. The island's harsh landscape, windswept moors, crashing waves, and long, dark winters bred a stoic endurance in its people, and Mary absorbed that spirit, helping her large family with chores from a young age. The economic woes of the 1920s, compounded by the Great Depression, prompted her bold leap at age 18, boarding the RMS Transylvania for a transatlantic voyage to New York, clutching just $50 sewn into her dress and dreams of a better future, leaving behind siblings who would follow in waves of chain migration. She toiled as a domestic servant in the opulent homes of Long Island's wealthy elite, scrubbing floors, cooking meals, and caring for children in mansions that contrasted sharply with her modest origins. Fate intervened at a lively dance hall in the mid-1930s, where the vivacious Mary, with her striking red hair and infectious laugh, caught Fred's eye amid the swing music and swirling couples. Their courtship was practical, yet romantic. Fred, smitten, proposed after a short romance, and their 1936 wedding at a Presbyterian church merged his calculated ambition with her endearing charisma. Mary brought a softer touch to the family, adoring the limelight, as she organized charity events for the Salvation Army and local hospitals, donning elegant fur coats and hats for outings that turned heads in Queens. She shared folklore from her homeland tales of hardy Highlanders, overcoming storms and famines that emphasized endurance, family bonds, and a bit of whimsy, often regaling the children with stories around the dinner table. The Trump residence in Jamaica Estates was no modest abode. It was a sprawling 23-room Tudor-style mansion with grand columns, lush gardens manicured to perfection, and an air of established prestige, a symbol of their climb up the social ladder from immigrant roots to American success. But Fred governed it with military precision. Mandatory family dinners, where ideas clashed like construction tools over hearty meals of roast beef and potatoes, early bedtimes enforced with a firm hand, and chores that built character, from mowing the lawn to washing the family cars. Siblings Marianne, who would rise to become a respected federal judge, appointed by Reagan, Fred Jr., whose later battles with alcoholism and early death at 42 from a heart attack cast a long shadow of cautionary tale over the family. Elizabeth, the quiet banker, Donald, and Robert, the loyal executor of the family business, competed fiercely for approval, often in games or debates orchestrated by their father to sharpen wits and foster rivalry. Weekend excursions to Fred's sites weren't mere playtime, they were apprenticeships, where the kids learned to inspect plumbing leaks, haggle with paint vendors, evict delinquent tenants with a mix of firmness and empathy, and detect any whiff of dishonesty in contractors' bids. Mary's influence softened the edges. Her Scottish brogue and hugs provided comfort after Fred's stern lectures, and her emphasis on appearance, always dressing sharply, even for errands, instilled in Donald a love for presentation and branding that would define his career. From his earliest days, young Donald was a whirlwind of energy and mischief, a pint-sized dynamo whose antics hinted at the bold personality to come. Affectionately called Donnie by the family, he constructed towering edifices from toy blocks in the playroom, stacking them higher and higher with meticulous care, only to gleefully topple them in dramatic demolitions that scattered pieces across the floor. An early omen of his future in building grand structures and navigating their potential collapses. Neighbors in the affluent Jamaica Estates enclave, a neighborhood of tree-lined streets and spacious homes where professionals and entrepreneurs mingled, recalled a boy full of vim, organizing impromptu street baseball games with makeshift bases or leading charges into wooded adventures to build forts from branches and mud. His competitive fire burned bright. He'd argue umpire calls with the fervor of a litigator or race bikes down hills at breakneck speeds. But it often veered into trouble, crossing lines that worried his parents. At the exclusive Q Forest School, a private academy founded by local luminaries, where Fred served on the board to ensure his children's enrollment, Donald shone in sports like dodgeball and tag, displaying natural leadership by captaining teams. But he pushed limits in the classroom, hurling erasers at teachers during lessons when boredom struck, engaging in playground scuffles that left bruises and torn shirts, and even a notorious episode where he punched his second-grade music teacher square in the face over a disagreement about a song's tempo, earning him a trip to the principal's office and a stern talking-to from Fred. He had a lot of spirit, but it needed direction, one classmate later quipped in interviews, recalling how Donald would rally friends for pranks like hiding classmates' books or sneaking candy into class. Stories circulated among the neighborhood kids of Donald throwing rocks at a neighbor's baby carriage for sport or swapping bikes with friends as a joke that left owners scrambling behaviors that screamed for intervention before they escalated. Fred, ever the disciplinarian, saw these as signs of untamed potential rather than malice. But by 1959, at the tender age of 13, he made a tough call, packing Donald off to the New York Military Academy in Cornwall-on-Hudson, a rigorous boarding institution renowned for straightening out rebellious youths through a regimen of structure, authority, and character-building trials. Life at NYMA was a stark departure from the comforts of home. A boot camp designed to forge character amid the rolling hills and crisp air of upstate New York, far from the urban hum of Queens. The day began with the shrill blast of reveille at dawn, rousing cadets from their bunks for quick ablutions before bed-making inspections, where a quarter had to bounce off the tightly tucked sheets to pass muster. Uniforms were polished to a mirror shine, boots laced just so, and the parade field echoed with the stomp of marches under the watchful eyes of drill sergeants, who barked commands like eyes right and forward march. Cadets, bunked in Spartan barracks with metal lockers and thin mattresses, endured communal showers that built camaraderie through shared discomfort, and faced the gauntlet of upperclassmen hazing, from endless push-ups for minor infractions like a wrinkled collar to verbal dressings down that tested mental resilience and taught humility. Trump arrived with his trademark bravado, suitcase in hand, and a smirk that said he was ready to conquer, but the Academy's rigors quickly humbled and honed him. He redirected his boundless energy into athletics, becoming captain of the varsity baseball team, where his powerful swing smashed home runs that echoed across the fields, earning him MVP nods and cheers from the bleachers during games against rival schools. He also dominated in soccer with agile footwork that dodged defenders, and wrestling with a grappler's ferocity that pinned opponents, building his stocky frame and instilling a love for competition that bordered on obsession. Peers described him as charismatic and commanding, the guy who'd rally a squad for a late-night study session under flashlight, or lead a charge in simulated combat exercises during field training, always aiming to outshine the rest and earn those coveted promotions. His room was a model of order, with every item in its place, winning him neatness awards that foreshadowed his later obsession with pristine properties and flawless branding. Yet, the Academy had its dark sides. Homesickness gnawed at him during quiet nights, when letters from Mary brought tears. Punishments like hour-long marches with full packs for demerits tested his physical limits, and the constant pressure to perform in academics studying history, math, and military strategy forged a win-at-all-costs mentality that would propel him in business. Friendships formed there were lifelong. Classmates like future executives and politicians recalled Trump's loyalty, such as sharing care packages or defending underclassmen from bullies. NYMA taught me discipline and how to channel aggression into achievement. Trump would later muse in interviews and books, crediting it for transforming his raw potential into focused ambition. By graduation, in 1964, he had ascended to the rank of captain in a company, commanding over 100 cadets, marching at the front of parades in crisp dress whites, and leaving with a polished uniform, a cotter of well-connected friends from wealthy families across the Northeast, and a worldview etched in hierarchy. The strong lead, the weak follow, and success is non-negotiable, a lesson that would echo through his deals and campaigns. With high school behind him, Trump set his sights on higher education, but his heart was already pounding with the rhythm of real estate deals and the allure of turning blueprints into fortunes. He enrolled at Fordham University in the Bronx, a respected Jesuit institution known for its ethical focus and urban campus, majoring in economics and commuting daily from Queens to keep distractions at bay and stay grounded in family life. Fordham's environment was a blend of academic rigor and the gritty energy of 1960s New York, where Trump dove into courses on microeconomics, accounting, and business principles, absorbing concepts like supply and demand that mirrored the rental markets he knew from home. He played on intramural sports teams, honing his competitive edge in basketball pickup games, joined the Sigma Alpha Mu fraternity for networking events that introduced him to future contacts, and maintained a solid but unremarkable GPA, often cutting classes to shadow Fred on job sites rather than linger in lectures. Those weekends were his true classroom, traipsing through muddy construction zones in hard hats, observing heated negotiations with union workers over wages and timelines, crunching numbers on rent rolls to spot underperforming units, and absorbing the intricacies of zoning laws, tax incentives, and the art of flipping distressed properties for profit. College was fine, but the real education was with my dad, getting dirt under my nails and learning to read people. Trump has recounted in numerous anecdotes, highlighting how those experiences sharpened his instinct for spotting opportunities in overlooked neighborhoods or undervalued lots. After 2 years at Fordham, feeling the pull of greater prestige and a curriculum more tailored to his ambitions, he transferred to the Wharton School at the University of Pennsylvania in 1966, an Ivy League powerhouse teeming with aspiring moguls and Wall Street-bound graduates. Wharton's campus in Philadelphia was a hub of intellectual ferment in the swinging 60s, with professors like real estate Guru Albert Ackerman teaching courses on property valuation, finance, and market analysis, surrounded by classmates who'd go on to helm Fortune 500 companies. Trump wasn't the star pupil. He prioritized practical application over textbooks, frequently jetting back to New York for business meetings or site visits, but he engaged in debates on economic theory, studied case studies of successful developers like William Zeckendorf, and graduated in 1968 with a Bachelor of Science in Economics, equipped with advanced tools like debt leverage, risk assessment models, and negotiation strategies that would become his weapons in the real estate wars. Looming over this period was the Vietnam War draft, a specter that gripped the nation and divided youth, but Trump evaded conscription through 4 student deferments during his college years, followed by a 1Y medical classification in 1968 for bone spurs in his heels, a diagnosis provided by a Queens podiatrist, allegedly renting from Fred, which later became ammunition for critics accusing him of draft dodging, while classmates and less privileged Americans fought in the jungles, a controversy that would resurface during his political runs. Degree in hand and brimming with ambition, Trump plunged into the family enterprise, then called Elizabeth Trump and son after his grandmother, but he burned with the desire to stamp his own mark, rebrand it, and scale beyond the safe confines of Queens and Brooklyn's middle-class housing. At 22, he took the reins of daily operations, overseeing renovations of aging apartment blocks, tenant relations that involved everything from fixing leaky roofs to resolving disputes, and expansions into new developments. But his vision soared toward Manhattan's glittering skyline, where true fortunes awaited amid the hustle of Wall Street tycoons and celebrity haunts. His inaugural independent project was a proving ground that tested his mettle. Swifton Village, a sprawling 1,200-unit apartment complex in Cincinnati, Ohio, that Fred had snapped up at a bargain during a market dip in the late 1960s. The property was in disarray, rampant vandalism, with broken windows and graffiti, high vacancy rates from dissatisfied residents, and maintenance woes like faulty elevators and overgrown lawns. But Trump attacked it with vigor, implementing fresh coats of paint in bright colors to boost curb appeal, landscaped grounds with new shrubs and playgrounds to attract families, security upgrades, including better lighting and patrols to reduce crime, and a marketing blitz that included newspaper ads and open houses targeting young professionals and blue-collar workers. He personally walked the halls, knocking on doors to hear complaints and promise fixes, a hands-on style inherited from Fred, but infused with his own charisma. The turnaround was swift. Occupancy surged to near full capacity, rent stabilized, and in 1972, he flipped it for a tidy $6.75 million profit, more than double the purchase price, a coup that inflated his confidence and proved he could operate outside his father's shadow, even in a Midwestern market far from New York's glamour. Back in New York, however, early controversies loomed large, casting shadows on the family's operations. In 1973, the U.S. Department of Justice filed a civil rights lawsuit against the Trump Organization, accusing them of systemic discrimination in housing rentals based on race claims, included marking applications with racial codes, like C for colored directing black applicants, to less desirable buildings with higher turnover, and reserving prime spots in whiter neighborhoods for Caucasian tenants, violations of the Fair Housing Act. The case, which drew media scrutiny, protests from civil rights groups, and testimony from doormen and managers, dragged on for 2 years, but settled in 1975 without an admission of guilt. The Trumps agreed to implement fair housing practices, including mandatory training for staff, advertising vacancies in minority-focused media outlets, and allowing testers to monitor compliance. It was Trump's first taste of high-profile legal battles, a theme that would recur throughout his life, like a recurring motif in a symphony, teaching him the power of denial, countersuits, media spin, and outlasting opponents through sheer persistence. The 1970s exploded with Trump's audacious foray into Manhattan, a decade defined by disco fever at Studio 54, economic stagflation with high inflation and unemployment, and his transformation from borough builder to urban titan amid a city on the verge of collapse. New York City was on its knees, fiscal bankruptcy, declared in 1975, soaring crime rates, with muggers prowling Central Park after dark, the infamous 1977 blackout that sparked widespread looting. But amid the decay and urban flight, Trump spied diamonds in the rough, properties ripe for revival with the right vision and hustle. His breakthrough deal was nothing short of legendary. The Commodore Hotel, a once Grand Beaux Arts icon, adjacent to Grand Central Terminal, now a decaying shell with peeling paint, rat infestations, and empty rooms under the bankrupt Penn Central Railroad ownership. At just 28, Trump secured an option to buy for $10 million, a risky bet in a neighborhood plagued by porn theaters and transients, then embarked on a masterful lobbying campaign that showcased his emerging genius for deal-making. He charmed city officials, including Mayor Abe Beame and Economic Development Czar John Zakati, into granting the first-ever tax abatement for a commercial property, a 40-year break valued at hundreds of millions over time, arguing persuasively that the project would revitalize Midtown, create jobs for union workers, and generate tourism revenue to pull the city from the brink. Partnering with the Hyatt chain for branding and operations, he stripped the interior to the bones, cloaked the historic facade in a modern reflective glass skin that mirrored the bustling streets, and unveiled the Grand Hyatt New York in 1980. A sleek, 26-story beacon with a soaring 4-story atrium, flooded with natural light, polished brass elevators that whisked guests to luxurious rooms, and upscale amenities like fine dining restaurants and conference spaces that drew business travelers and conventions. The opening gala sparkled with celebrities like Frank Sinatra and Mayor Ed Koch, toasts flowing with champagne, and the hotel's instant profitability showered Trump with management fees, equity stakes, and a halo of success, establishing him as the wonderkind who could resurrect the dead and bend bureaucracy to his will. That deal was my coming-out party, he'd later proclaim in speeches and books, a testament to his blend of vision, negotiation prowess, political schmoozing, and sheer audacity that turned a $70 million renovation into a landmark triumph. Riding high on the Hyatt's glow, Trump set his sights on an even bolder emblem of his ego and ambition, Trump Tower on Fifth Avenue, a project that would cement his name in the annals of luxury real estate and become a symbol of 1980s opulence. In 1979, he acquired the site of the venerable Bonwit Teller department store for $13 million after outbidding competitors. But the demolition phase ignited a firestorm of controversy that previewed his willingness to bulldoze obstacles, literal and figurative. promised to donate the building's iconic Art Deco bas-reliefs, sculpted female figures, and ornate grillwork to the Metropolitan Museum of Art as a gesture of goodwill. Trump instead ordered jackhammers to pulverize them overnight, claiming safety concerns from structural instability and exorbitant removal costs. Estimated at $500,000, preservationists decried it as cultural destruction and vandalism, picketing the site with signs reading "Trump the Barbarian," but he dismissed the uproar with characteristic nonchalance, saying they weren't worth much anyway, undeterred by the backlash and lawsuits from art advocates. Construction pressed on amid labor disputes, including allegations of exploiting undocumented Polish workers who toiled 12-hour shifts without proper pay or safety gear, leading to a 1983 lawsuit settled years later for $1 million, and zoning fights that required variances for the tower's height and design. By 1983, the 58-story edifice Trump falsely advertised it as 68 by skipping floor numbers to inflate prestige rows as a shimmering tower of bronze-tinted glass and imported Brexia Pernis pink marble, featuring a 6-level public atrium with a 60-foot cascading waterfall that created a serene oasis amid the avenue's chaos, hanging ivy gardens that added a touch of nature, and high-end retail spaces leased to luxury brands like Gucci, Esprit, and Louis Vuitton. Condominiums on the upper floors sold at record-breaking prices, up to $10 million for penthouses to luminaries such as Michael Jackson, who hosted parties there, Saudi Prince Al-Walid bin Talal, and actors like Johnny Carson and Steven Spielberg, drawn by the exclusivity and security. Trump's own triplex penthouse, atop it all, spanning 3 floors and 10,000 square feet, boasted 24-karat gold-plated fixtures, hand-painted ceilings inspired by Versailles, crystal chandeliers dangling like jewels, and panoramic views of Central Park that symbolized his ascent to the pinnacle of wealth. The tower wasn't merely architecture. It was a brand launchpad, with Trump emblazoned in massive brass letters that gleamed under spotlights, symbolizing 80s excess, capitalist triumph, and Trump's knack for turning real estate into personal mythology. Success fueled further extravagance. In 1988, he splurged $407 million on the historic Plaza Hotel, overlooking Central Park, a French Renaissance chateau built in 1907, pouring another $50 million into renovations that included restoring its palm court with stained glass domes, adding gold leaf bathrooms, and installing crystal chandeliers, appointing Ivana as president to infuse it with European elegance and turn it into a celebrity hotspot for events like weddings and galas. Trump's personal sphere was as dazzling and tumultuous as his business ventures, a soap opera of romance, family dynamics, and public spectacle that often spilled into the tabloids. In 1977, during a night out at the fashionable Maxwell's Plum restaurant, a singles bar known for its stained glass ceiling and eclectic crowd, he spotted Ivana Zelničková, a stunning Czech model and former alternate on the 1972 Winter Olympic ski team for Czechoslovakia, whose poise, athletic build, and business savvy matched his own drive. Their courtship was whirlwind dates at elite spots like Le Cirque, trips to Europe for fashion shows, and romantic getaways to the Hamptons, and culminated in a lavish April 1977 wedding at Norman Vincent Peale's Marble Collegiate Church on Fifth Avenue, attended by New York's power brokers, with a reception featuring caviar and orchestral music. Ivana wasn't just a trophy wife. She became a vital partner, overseeing interior design for the Grand Hyatt and Plaza, with her signature flair for opulence, incorporating Bohemian crystal and Austrian fabrics, while raising their 3 children. Donald Jr., born December 31, 1977, who would later helm the family business with a focus on international deals. Ivanka Marie, October 30, 1981, the poised advisor, fashion entrepreneur, and White House confidante, and Eric Frederick, January 6, 1984, the philanthropy-focused executive who runs the Trump Winery. The Trumps epitomized 80s glamour, jet-setting to Palm Beach galas in private planes, rubbing elbows with royalty like Prince Charles and Princess Diana at charity balls, partying at Studio 54 amid disco lights and celebrities like Bianca Jagger, and even commissioning artist Andy Warhol for portraits, though a feud ensued when Trump rejected Warhol's pop art series as too colorful and refused payment. Family life had its idyllic moments. Summers at the sprawling Greenwich estate with pool parties and horseback riding, teaching the kids to ski on aspen slopes, and instilling Fred's work ethic through allowances tied to chores like polishing silver or helping with yard work. Yet, beneath the veneer of perfection, strains simmered. Trump's relentless schedule of 18-hour days left little room for domesticity, and rumors of extramarital dalliances with models and actresses began to circulate in gossip columns, culminating in a bombshell 1989 confrontation on the Aspen ski slopes during a family vacation, where Ivana discovered his affair with Georgia model and actress Marla Maples through a heated argument that made headlines, sparking one of the era's most salacious divorces filled with leaked details and courtroom drama. Meanwhile, Trump's ambitions veered toward the neon lights and high-stakes glamour of Atlantic City, the East Coast's answer to Las Vegas, where he envisioned an empire of casinos that would rival his real estate triumphs and tap into the thrill of gambling fortunes. In 1984, after wrangling permits from New Jersey's Casino Control Commission and securing financing through high-yield bonds, Trump Plaza Hotel and Casino opened with a bang, fireworks illuminating the boardwalk, Frank Sinatra crooning at the star-studded gala, and crowds flocking to its 60,000 square feet of gaming floors, with slot machines clanging and blackjack tables buzzing. Ivana managed Trump's castle, later Trump Marina, followed in 1985, rebranded from a stalled Hilton project after a licensing spat with the chain, featuring themed suites like the Crystal Tower and high-roller perks, such as private jets for Wales' big spenders. But the crown jewel or albatross was the Trump Taj Mahal, unveiled in April 1990 at a jaw-dropping $1.1 billion cost, making it the priciest casino ever built and a monument to excess. Billed as the eighth wonder of the world, it boasted Indian-inspired minarets soaring into the sky, crystal chandeliers the size of small cars imported from Austria, life-sized elephant statues guarding the entrances, and 120,000 square feet of slots, roulette wheels, and poker rooms, complete with a 51,000-seat arena for concerts. The opening extravaganza featured Michael Jackson moonwalking on stage to beat at helicopter flyovers, dropping promotional vouchers, and 50,000 visitors jamming the doors on day one. But behind the spectacle, the financing was a house of cards, reliant on $675 million in high-interest, junk bonds amid a saturating market, with competitors like Caesars and Bally's vying for gamblers. Initial revenues soared to $14 million in the first week, but as the economy stuttered into recession with rising interest rates and consumer caution, the cracks widened, attendance dipped, and debt payments loomed like a guillotine, setting the stage for a dramatic fall that would test Trump's mettle like never before. The early 1990s delivered Trump's most harrowing pivot, a cataclysmic financial meltdown that gripped the tabloids, threatened his empire, and became a defining test of his fabled resilience in the face of adversity. By 1990, his personal debt had ballooned to nearly $900 million, with the organization's total liabilities topping $3.5 billion, fueled by over-leveraged acquisitions, casino expansions, and a real estate market crash that saw property values plummet across the board. The Taj Mahal filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy protection just 3 months after opening, unable to meet bond payments, followed swiftly by Trump Plaza and Trump's Castle, forcing humiliating restructurings where banks like Citibank and manufacturers Hanover seized control, demanded asset sales, and limited Trump's spending to $450,000 monthly allowance. Assets were liquidated in a fire sale that stripped away symbols of his lavish lifestyle. The opulent Trump Princess Yacht, a 282-foot floating palace purchased from Saudi billionaire Adnan Khashoggi for $29 million, complete with helipads, a movie theater, disco rooms, and bulletproof glass. The ill-fated Trump Shuttle airline, which he'd acquired from Eastern Airlines in 1989 for $365 million, and rebranded with gold faucets and leather seats, but couldn't turn profitable amid fuel costs and competition. Even his sprawling Connecticut mansion and stakes in other ventures like a failed bicycle race. Headlines screamed doom. Trump's Taj Mahal gamble goes bust, the Donald's downfall, and critics like Spy magazine mocked him relentlessly as a short-fingered vulgarian in their satirical pages. Compounding the chaos was his personal implosion. The divorce from Ivana finalized in 1992 after Maple's affair went public, complete with leaked details like Maple's infamous New York Post headline "Best Sex I've Ever Had" planted by Trump himself, some allege, for publicity, and a bitter battle over prenups that saw Ivana secure $14 million cash, the Greenwich home, a Manhattan apartment, annual alimony, and custody arrangements for the children. Trump married Maples in a December 1993 ceremony at the Plaza Hotel, attended by 1,000 guests, including O.J. Simpson, Howard Stern, and Rosie O'Donnell before their feud, with their daughter, Tiffany, born 2 months prior in October. The union, however, proved fleeting, dissolving in 1999 amid mutual drift and Trump's wandering eye. Through it all, Trump refused to crumble. He negotiated debt workouts with bankers over pizza and Diet Coke in his Trump Tower office, retaining slivers of ownership in the casinos, and vowed a comeback in press conferences where he spun the narrative as a temporary setback. "I was billions in debt, but I fought back harder than ever," he'd later write in his books, turning the episode into a badge of honor and a lesson in leverage, emerging leaner and more focused on branding over ownership. The mid-1990s marked a phoenix-like resurgence as Trump shifted gears from direct ownership to licensing his name, a savvy, low-risk strategy that rebuilt his fortune without the heavy capital outlay and allowed him to monetize his celebrity status. He dove into leisure developments, acquiring and rebranding golf courses like the historic Trump Turnberry in Scotland, purchased in 2014, but with roots in 90s expansions. With its championship, Ailsa course overlooking the Irish Sea and luxury spas attracting elite players. Trump National Golf Club in Bedminster, New Jersey, where manicured fairways and bunkers hosted PGA tournaments and became a retreat for political hobnobbing. And Trump International in West Palm Beach, blending residential condos with link-style play. Beauty pageants became another arena for his showmanship. In 1996, he bought the Miss Universe organization for $10 million, injecting Hollywood glitz with celebrity judges like Oprah Winfrey, global broadcasts reaching 2 billion viewers, and controversies like his behind-the-scenes weigh-ins that sparked debates on body image, turning it into a profitable spectacle sold in 2015 for $20 million. His literary foray amplified the myth. The Art of the Deal, co-authored with journalist Tony Schwartz in 1987, but resonating into the 90s with sequels like Surviving at the Top, 1990, became a mega bestseller with over 1 million copies sold, packed with anecdotes like outmaneuvering City Hall for tax breaks or psyching out competitors with bold bluffs. Phrases like "think big, protect the downside," and "use your leverage" became mantras for aspiring entrepreneurs, positioning Trump as a business oracle, even as skeptics noted Schwartz's heavy lifting and the book's embellishments. The dawn of the 2000s catapulted Trump into an unforeseen realm, reality television stardom, a medium that amplified his persona to godlike proportions and introduced him to a new generation. In 2004, producer Mark Burnett, fresh off the Survival Smash Survivor, pitched The Apprentice, a cutthroat competition where 16 aspiring moguls tackled business challenges, from selling artisanal ice cream on Manhattan street corners to crafting ad campaigns for major brands like Pepsi or designing toy prototypes. Trump, seated in a lavish boardroom set modeled after his own, delivered verdicts with dramatic flair, building tension with pauses before his finger jab, an iconic "you're fired" catchphrase, which became instant memes and water cooler talk. The premiere episode drew 20 million viewers, skyrocketing NBC's ratings in the Thursday night slot and spawning 14 seasons, plus spin-offs like Celebrity Apprentice, featuring stars such as Meat Loaf, Joan Rivers, and Gary Busey in tasks like fundraising for charities or creating viral videos. The show wasn't just entertainment. It humanized Trump, showcasing family cameos, Ivanka's poised critiques on fashion tasks, Don Jr. strategic insights during negotiations, Eric's quiet support in boardroom deliberations, and his opulent lifestyle, from helicopter rides over the city to lavish parties at Mar-a-Lago. Earnings peaked at $3 million per episode, and the format exported globally to countries like the UK and Australia, cementing Trump as synonymous with ruthless capitalism, mentorship, and entertainment value. On the romantic front, a new chapter unfolded with Melania Nos, a Slovenian supermodel Trump, met at a 1998 Kit Kat Club Fashion Week party while she was on a date with another. Their initial spark flickered. Melania rebuffed his request for her number out of politeness, but persistence paid off with calls and dates that showcased her intelligence and grace. After a brief split in 2000, amid media pressure, they reconciled, and Trump proposed in April 2004 with a 15-carat Graf diamond ring valued at $1.5 million during the Met Gala. Their January 2005 wedding at Mar-a-Lago, the palatial 126-room Mediterranean-style estate Trump had rescued from post-family heirs in 1985 for a bargain $10 million amid its disrepair, and converted into a private club generating millions in membership fees, was a spectacle of excess. 450 guests, including Hillary and Bill Clinton, foreshadowing future rivalries. Shaquille O'Neal, Barbara Walters, and Rudy Giuliani. Melania in a $100,000 Christian Dior gown, embroidered with 1,500 crystals, and weighing 60 pounds, requiring assistance to maneuver. Billy Joel performing hits like Just the Way You Are, and The Longest Time at the Reception, where caviar, Grand Marnier soufflés, and a 7-tier cake delighted palates. Their son Baron William arrived in March 2006, a tall, tech-savvy kid who'd later prefer video games and coding to the spotlight, with Melania championing causes like cyberbullying through her Be Best initiative, despite ironies given Trump's online barbs. Melania's elegant, multilingual presence, speaking 5 languages including Slovenian, English, French, Italian, and German, provided a counterpoint to Trump's bombast, though her modeling past, including nude photos from early career shoots and occasional public reticence, fueled media intrigue and speculation. Business in the 2000s blended triumphs with turbulence as Trump expanded his empire through licensing deals that slapped his name on skyscrapers in Chicago. The 98-story Trump International Hotel and Tower, completed in 2009, with its spire piercing the skyline. Toronto, Dubai, Istanbul, and Mumbai without full ownership, collecting hefty fees while mitigating risk in volatile markets. Ventures like Trump Steaks, sold through sharper image, but discontinued after low sales. Trump Vodka, marketed as Success Distilled, but flopped amid competition. And Trump Ties, peddled luxury lifestyle products, though many fizzled due to quality issues or oversaturation. Trump University, launched in 2005 as online seminars and live events promising real estate riches through Trump secrets, drew acclaim initially from attendees, but devolved into class action lawsuits alleging bait-and-switch tactics, false promises, and pressure sales, settling in 2016 for $25 million, without admitting wrongdoing just after his election. Public feuds kept him in the headlines and fed his love for combat. A 2006 war of words with comedian Rosie O'Donnell on The View, where she mocked his bankruptcies and hair, prompting him to fire back on Entertainment Tonight, calling her fat disgusting. And a slob escalated into a multi-year tabloid saga that boosted both their profiles and ratings, exemplifying Trump's strategy of turning conflict into publicity. Politics, long a simmering undercurrent in Trump's life, began to boil as he tested the waters with increasing frequency. In the late 80s, he had taken out full-page ads in newspapers like the New York Times for $94,000, decrying U.S. trade imbalances with Japan and calling for tougher foreign policy, while also advocating the death penalty in the Central Park 5 case. 5 Black and Latino teens wrongfully convicted of rape, later exonerated in 2002, sparking backlash when Trump refused to apologize. His 2000 flirtation with the Reform Party presidential nomination, where he formed an exploratory committee and appeared on shows like Larry King Live, fizzled amid internal party chaos. But he critiqued figures like Pat Buchanan as a Hitler lover and proposed policies like a one-time wealth tax on the rich. The 2010s ignited his partisan fire with the birther conspiracy, relentlessly questioning President Barack Obama's U.S. birthplace on Fox News, in interviews, and at events, demanding long-form birth certificates despite Hawaii's release of evidence, a stance that resonated with conservative skeptics feeling alienated by Obama's policies, but drew accusations of racism and demagoguery from liberals. the 2011 White House Correspondents' Dinner, where Obama roasted him mercilessly with jokes about his hair and celebrity apprentice, amid laughs from the elite crowd, including journalists and celebrities, left Trump seething at his table, planting seeds of vengeance that would bloom spectacularly in his own presidential run. The defining moment arrived on June 16, 2015, descending the golden escalator in Trump Tower with Melania at his side. Before a crowd partly paid $50 each to attend for enthusiasm, he announced his Republican presidential bid in a speech that set the tone for a disruptive campaign. "We're going to make America great again," Trump thundered, railing against Mexican immigrants as bringing drugs, bringing crime, their rapists adding, and some, "I assume, are good people," promising a border wall Mexico would fund, decrying trade deals like NAFTA as jobs killers, and vowing to defeat ISIS and rebuild infrastructure. The campaign was a carnival of controversy and catchy soundbites, nicknaming rivals like low-energy Jeb Bush for his demeanor, little Marco Rubio for his height, and Lion Ted Cruz for perceived dishonesty, mocking a disabled New York Times reporter Serge Kowalski's movements during a rally, dismissing war hero John McCain's POW status with he's a war hero because he was captured. "I like people who weren't captured" scandals piled up the October 2016 release of the Access Hollywood tape from 2005, where he bragged to Billy Bush about grabbing women by the pussy because when you're a star, they let you do it, prompted GOP defections and condemnations, but didn't sink him, as he dismissed it as locker room talk and pivoted to attacking Bill Clinton's accusers. Instead, Trump's rallies drew massive, fervent crowds of 20,000 plus in arenas, chanting "Build the Wall" and "Lock her up" at mentions of Hillary Clinton, connecting viscerally with blue-collar voters in the Rust Belt feeling left behind by globalization, factory closures, and cultural shifts. He won the nomination at the chaotic Cleveland Convention in July 2016, fending off a Never Trump movement and picking Indiana Governor Mike Pence as VP for evangelical appeal. The November 8, 2016, election night delivered a seismic shock heard around the world. Defying polls that gave Clinton a 85% chance, Trump flipped long blue strongholds like Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin by slim margins, securing 304 electoral votes to Clinton's 227, despite losing the popular tally by 2.8 million votes. His victory speech at the New York Hilton called for unity and healing, but the January 20, 2017, inauguration on the National Mall set a combative tone. Crowd sizes exaggerated as the largest ever despite photos showing otherwise, birthing alternative facts from aide Kellyanne Conway, while massive women's marches protested his win in cities worldwide. Trump's first term was a maelstrom of bold policies, relentless tweets over 25,000 in 4 years, often at odd hours, and unending drama that kept the nation on edge. Day 1, executive orders targeted immigration, instituting a travel ban from 7 Muslim-majority countries that ignited chaos at airports with detained travelers and protests, court battles ensuing over Muslim ban claims. He withdrew from the Trans-Pacific Partnership trade deal and the Paris Climate Accord, fulfilling isolationist promises to prioritize American workers over global commitments. The 2017 Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, his signature legislative win after Obamacare repeal, failed, slashed corporate rates from 35% to 21% and individual rates, supercharging the economy. GDP hit 2.9% growth in 2018. Unemployment plummeted to 3.7%, a 49-year low. Stock market soared to records, and wages rose for blue-collar sectors. Judicial appointments reshaped the federal bench. Supreme Court picks Neil Gorsuch 2017, filling Scalia's seat after GOP blockade. Brett Kavanaugh 2018, amid explosive sexual assault hearings by Christine Blasey Ford that divided the nation. And Amy Coney Barrett 2020, rushed through before the election tilted it conservative, culminating in the 2022 Dobbs decision, overturning Roe v. Wade and returning abortion rights to states. Foreign affairs mixed bravado with breakthroughs. Historic summits with North Korea's Kim Jong-un in Singapore 2018, with handshakes and vague denuclearization pledges, and Hanoi 2019, ending without deal but opening dialogue. Tariffs on $360 billion in Chinese goods sparked a trade war but pressured Beijing on intellectual property theft and forced labor. The Abraham Accords 2020 normalized relations between Israel and Arab nations like UAE, Bahrain, Sudan, and Morocco, a Middle East peace milestone bypassing Palestinian issues. Yet, coziness with Russia's Vladimir Putin praising him as strong despite election, meddling and withdrawal from the Iran nuclear deal, reimposing sanctions, drew fire from allies and heightened tensions. Scandals shadowed every step, creating a perpetual storm cloud over the White House. The Russia investigation, sparked by hacked DNC emails and WikiLeaks dumps during 2016, led to Robert Mueller's special counsel probe into potential collusion. His March 2019 report cleared Trump of conspiracy, but outlined 10 episodes of potential obstruction of justice, including attempts to fire Mueller, firing FBI Director James Comey in May 2017, admitting on TV it related to this Russia thing with Trump, fueled outrage and comparisons to Watergate. Then, the Ukraine scandal unfolded. A September 2019 whistleblower report revealed Trump's July phone call pressuring newly elected President Volodymyr Zelensky to probe Joe Biden and his son Hunter's Burisma ties, plus a debunked 2016 server theory, while withholding $391 million in congressionally approved military aid as leverage. House Democrats, led by Speaker Nancy Pelosi, impeached him in December 2019 for abuse of power and obstruction of Congress. The GOP-controlled Senate acquitted in February 2020 on near-party lines, 52-48 and 53-47. With Mitt Romney, the lone Republican defector, the 2020 COVID-19 pandemic became a defining crucible that exposed divisions and tested leadership. Trump initially downplayed the threat in January. "We have it totally under control. It's one person coming in from China, clashing with experts like Dr. Anthony Fauci on masks, which he mocked as unnecessary, and lockdowns." The virus ravaged the U.S., with over 400,000 deaths by term's end. The economy cratered, shedding 22 million jobs in April alone, as businesses shuttered. His suggestions at press briefings of injecting disinfectants or using UV light internally drew ridicule and health warnings. Yet, Operation Warp Speed, a public-private partnership, accelerated vaccines from Pfizer and Moderna, delivering shots by December 2020, a bipartisan win credited with saving millions of lives globally. Racial tensions erupted after George Floyd's May murder by Minneapolis police officer Derek Chauvin, sparking nationwide protests under Black Lives Matter banners. Trump branded them riots by anarchists and looters deploying federal troops to cities like Portland amid tear gas clashes, and labeling Democratic mayors weak. The 2020 election against Joe Biden was a bitter slugfest, amplified by the pandemic's virtual campaigning. Trump preemptively cried fraud over expanded mail-in voting, sowing doubt with baseless claims of rigged machines. He lost 306-232 electoral votes, with Biden ahead by 7 million popularly. But Trump refused concession, launching 62 lawsuits, 61 dismissed or withdrawn for lack of evidence, and pressuring officials like Georgia's Secretary of State Brad Raffensperger in a recorded call to find 11,780 votes. The January 6, 2021 Capitol insurrection was the explosive climax. At a Stop the Steal rally near the White House, Trump exhorted thousands, "If you don't fight like hell, you're not going to have a country anymore," before they marched and breached the Capitol, smashing windows, clashing with police, and halting electoral certification. 5 died, including rioter Ashley Babbitt and Officer Brian Sicknick. Lawmakers hid as chants of hang Mike Pence echoed. Trump was impeached again by the House for incitement of insurrection, becoming the first president twice impeached. The Senate acquitted 57-43 on February 13, falling short of the 67-vote conviction threshold, with 7 Republicans joining Democrats. Banished from Twitter, now X, and other platforms for inflammatory posts, risking further violence, Trump retreated to Mar-a-Lago in Florida, transforming the club into a de facto political headquarters, where he hosted fundraisers and plotted resurgence. He launched the Save America PSC, raking in over $250 million from supporters via emails decrying election theft, and endorsed MAGA allies in the 2022 midterms, yielding mixed GOP gains with wins in the House, but losses in key Senate races. Legal tempests gathered like storm clouds. New York Attorney General Letitia James's 2022 civil fraud suit accused the Trump Organization of inflating asset values for loans and deflating for taxes, resulting in a September 2023 ruling by Judge Arthur Engoron, fining $355 million swelling to $464 million, with interest and barring Trump from New York business. For 3 years, stayed on appeal. Federal indictments in June 2023, over 40 counts for mishandling classified documents at Mar-a-Lago, including Espionage Act violations for storing sensitive nuclear and defense info in bathrooms. Georgia DA Fani Willis's August 2023 RICO charges for election subversion involving fake electors. D.C. Special Counsel Jack Smith's indictments for January 6 efforts to overturn results. In March 2023, he became the first sitting or former president indicted, facing 91 felonies across 4 cases, turning court appearances into campaign events with defiant speeches outside. Undeterred, Trump announced his 2024 bid in November 2022 from Mar-a-Lago, framing indictments as witch hunts by a weaponized justice system that boosted fundraising to record levels. He steamrolled the GOP primaries, vanquishing Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, dubbed DeSanctimonious, and former UN Ambassador Nikki Haley with rally barbs and social media attacks, securing the nomination early. Shocks came via assassination attempts that galvanized supporters. On July 13, 2024, in Butler, Pennsylvania, 20-year-old shooter Thomas Crooks fired from a rooftop, grazing Trump's ear amid gunfire that killed 1 attendee and injured 2. Defiant photos of a bloody Trump fist-pumping fight with the American flag behind him went viral, boosting polls. A second plot in September by Ryan Rout, armed near Trump's Florida golf course, was thwarted by Secret Service, facing Vice President Kamala Harris after Biden's July 2024 withdrawal post a disastrous debate performance exposing age concerns. Trump's campaign hammered inflation, peaking at 9.1% in 2022, open borders with migrant surges, and crime in Democratic cities, while Harris countered with abortion rights and democracy threats. November 5, 2024, delivered a decisive victory, 312-226 electoral votes, reclaiming swing states like Nevada, Georgia, and Pennsylvania with a popular vote edge. Inaugurated January 20, 2025, amid heightened security, Trump's second term unleashes aggressive agendas aimed at America First revival. Executive orders for mass deportations, rounding up over 1 million undocumented immigrants via expanded ICE raids and military support, drawing protests but fulfilling promises. 10-20% tariffs on imports, especially from China and Mexico, igniting trade tensions, but aiming to boost domestic manufacturing and reduce deficits. By March 2026, economic indicators show mixed results: GDP growth at 3.2% from energy deregulation and tax extensions, stock markets hitting new highs, but inflation lingering at 4% from tariff effects, prompting Federal Reserve rate adjustments. Foreign wins include brokering fragile Ukraine-Russia truce talks in Geneva, withdrawing U.S. troops from certain bases, and expanding Abraham Accords to include Saudi Arabia in a historic deal normalizing ties with Israel. Controversies persist. Pardons for January 6 participants labeled political prisoners spark impeachment calls from Democrats. The Supreme Court's July 2024 immunity ruling shielding official acts leads to dismissal of some federal charges, though Georgia and New York cases drag on with appeals. Family anchors the narrative through it all. Ivanka and Jared Kushner advise informally on Middle East policy from their Miami home. Don Jr. and Eric steer the Trump Organization amid ongoing fraud appeals, expanding into crypto and NFTs. Melania focuses on Barron, now 20, studying business at NYU Stern with a low profile and wellness initiatives like anti-bullying programs. Tiffany and her husband, Michael Boulos, a Lebanese-Nigerian heir, pursue business ventures in Africa. Lara Trump, Eric's wife, co-chairs the RNC, reshaping party operations. Trump's biography captivates with its endless cycles of ruin and revival, from 90s bankruptcies that nearly wiped him out to Forbes-listed billions estimated $7 billion in 2026. Buoyed by Truth Social stock and licensing, scandals like loose associations with Jeffrey Epstein, no charges, but flights on his jet noted, and emoluments lawsuits over foreign payments to his hotels add layers of intrigue. Triumphs such as creating the Space Force in 2019, signing the First Step Act for prison reform that released thousands, and cultural icons like red MAGA hats embody division, devotion, and a reshaping of American populism. It's a mirror to America's soul ambitious, contentious, unbreakable, a story that continues to unfold with every headline.
Headline: